It's been 1 week later, and I still can't believe how Leon did it. Going into UFC 278, I thought Leon had a legitimate chance at winning this matchup against Usman, but I never expected him to win the way he won. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Going into UFC 278, I made a video saying that I thought Leon was a very live dog, and I thought he could potentially beat Usman in two different ways. The first way would be finding a submission. I did mention in my video that Usman doesn't necessarily have jiu-jitsu whatsoever, and sometimes on the ground, he's a little bit open, so if Leon could somehow find Usman's back, or if he could somehow find some sort of submission, that wasn't necessarily something I thought was likely, but I did think it could potentially happen. And of course, Leon didn't end up finding that submission, but what did happen in that matchup is we did see Usman's lack of jiu-jitsu, as Leon, once he was on the ground, was able to just give up his back due to the fact that Usman had no threat whatsoever of a submission, and Leon was able to get to his feet a lot easier due to that. But the other way I thought Leon could potentially win would be by a decision. If Leon would just be able to outpoint Usman on the feet and just keep the fight on the feet for the most part, utilizing that really good takedown defense, I thought Leon could potentially win a decision. But of course, that didn't happen either. But what did end up happening was in the 5th round, Leon was down 3 rounds to 1, and he was losing the 5th round. But then, with less than a minute left, he threw one of the most perfect head kicks right to Usman while Usman was leaning into it, and ended up knocking Usman out, who's never been knocked out before ever. And at that point, Leon certainly shocked the world, not just because he beat Usman, but the way that he beat Usman. And while watching it live, I felt like Joe said it best. My brain was literally having trouble processing what just happened, and it really didn't feel real at the time. It was just so crazy, and definitely the craziest thing I've ever seen in MMA, and it's honestly the craziest thing that I've ever seen in sports probably. And in my prediction video that I made about this, I even said that I don't see Usman getting knocked out. I didn't even see that as a possibility on the table, because obviously Usman has a granite chin, but also Leon doesn't typically knock people out. So the fact that Leon was able to knock out Kamaru Usman is just so bizarre, and is one of the last things that I would have expected. But Leon was able to do it, and that was one of the greatest comfort behind wins probably of all time, considering the circumstances of it being a championship fight and the fact that he was down 4 rounds to 1 basically because he was losing that 5th round. It was just so crazy that he was able to do it. But now, what's next for Leon Edwards? Is he going to rematch Usman? Is he going to fight Jorge Masvidal? Would he fight Colby Covington? Would Hamzat get a title shot? What's next? So obviously, in my opinion, it's very obvious. Dana White has already said it. It's going to be Usman 3. It's going to be Leon Usman 3, and that's going to be a humongous fight. Usman has been such a dominant champion, obviously he deserves an immediate rematch. But what can we expect in this matchup? So although Leon was able to pull off an improbable victory, considering the circumstances, in this rematch against Usman, he's going to need to make some adjustments if he wants to win again. Because I definitely think he could beat Usman again. I do think he has the type of skill, but based upon the performance that he was showing up until that knockout, there's a lot of things that he needs to adjust. But probably the first and main thing that he really needs to focus on going forward is he can't get pushed back for the entire fight. Early in round 1, when Leon was pushing forward, he was having a ton of success, and obviously when he got the knockout, he was moving forward. But throughout the rest of the fight in rounds 2, 3, 4, and early in round 5, Leon was just moving back constantly, and that makes it difficult to get your offense off, and you're kind of just being defensive at that point. But also, he was backing himself into a corner and just putting himself in a position to get taken down time in and time again. And obviously, as we all know, Usman is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, maybe the best wrestler, so that's definitely not something you want to do. You want to consistently be pushing forward. Now, probably the reason why Leon was moving backwards the whole fight was because he was so tired, partially due to the elevation, probably mostly due to the elevation, honestly, and that's something that I do believe him on, but that's not going to be an excuse going forward because this 3rd fight is probably going to be in London. So Leon definitely has to consistently push forward in this next matchup. He also needs to throw a lot of offense, I would like to see a lot of kicks to the legs of Usman, as Leon definitely has great leg kicks. Now the concern about throwing leg kicks on a guy who has great wrestling like Usman does is Usman could just catch the kick and easily take Leon to the ground, but in my opinion, I think Leon has good enough takedown defense, and even if the fight does get to the ground, he's good enough at getting back up that I think it's worth the risk of throwing those leg kicks. If you could just really hurt Usman's legs and somewhat slow him down in that sense, that's obviously going to be a huge factor for you, and then you can have an easier time at throwing shots upstairs or maybe even to the body and really try to hurt Usman once again. Because even besides the head kick, Leon is definitely the more technical striker, and he was catching Usman with some nice shots at times. I would just like to see him consistently do that over 5 rounds. Now on the ground, a huge advantage for Leon is the fact that Usman has no jiu-jitsu threat whatsoever, so he could just give up his back and get up like that. The fact that Usman doesn't have a submission threat whatsoever is actually a pretty big hole within his game, and the fact that he was able to be so dominant without that factor whatsoever kind of just shows you how good he is in every other aspect of his game. I also thought Leon could have thrown some more elbows in the clinch, as that's definitely something that he's very good at, but besides that, I feel like the main 2 things that he needs to focus on is just consistently push forward for 5 rounds and also make sure your cardio is on point, which those 2 points kind of tie in together, because if your cardio is on point, you're more likely to move forward, but if you're tired the whole fight, you're probably going to be pushing back. And if Leon can make the 3rd fight look more like the first round of the first fight, I definitely think he can have a lot of success, obviously. But although that victory was so improbable and so incredible, and I'm so happy for Leon, let's be honest, Kamaru was dominating the fight for the most part. He was doing a really nice job at having some nice moments on the feet. He was doing a really nice job at pushing Leon backwards to the fence and getting takedown after takedown. Now he wasn't able to hold Leon on the ground, but he was doing a really nice job to get him to that point and to take him down. So for Usman, there's not really all that many changes that I would like to see from him. Basically do exactly what you did in that 2nd fight. But one thing that I will say, one of the reasons why he did get knocked out is Usman was actually moving back a little bit, and he just had a technical error in his defense, which is something that he's definitely going to need to touch up for his next matchup. But besides that, I think everything else that he did was obviously on point, so for him there's not really all that many adjustments that he needs to make. But this fight is probably not going to happen before February. At the very earliest, I could see it happening in March, April, or even May, due to the fact that Usman got knocked out so badly. But it's definitely a fight that I'm extremely excited to watch, and it's going to be a huge fight. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. What was your reaction to the Leon victory? Were you surprised? Were you not surprised? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.